A couple of months ago, I was sitting in church and God spoke to me and told me that I'd be preaching a message. And the first thought that came into my mind is, God, are you sure you want me? Because as many of you know, I'm really shy and don't say a whole lot till I really get to know you. It's kind of wild how God brings us out of our comfort zone for His own glory. But I come up with this video sermon. It's called "Keep Your Eyes on the Prize." I'll be reading Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33 of the King James Version. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit, and they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and began to sink. He cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand, and called him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth thou art the Son of God. You see, Peter had enough faith to step out of the boat and onto the water. And as long as he trusted in Jesus and kept his mind on Jesus, he didn't sink. But when doubt and fear, which means false evidence appearing real, came to his mind, he began to sink. You see, Peter knew he was in a storm, but he knew his faith in Jesus would help him overcome it. I believe that with all the waves and the lightning and the winds, that Peter lost sight of Jesus and began to sink. But he knew Jesus was still there, and he cried out to Jesus, and Jesus pulled him back up out of the water. A lot of times we go through storms in our lives, and, whether it be financially or alcoholism, drugs, or anything like that, there's a lot of times we begin to sink. But if we just cry out to Jesus and ask him to help us, he'll bring us back up where we need to be. I've seen a lot of people go through things in life, and they always say, well, where was Jesus when all this happened? Well, let me tell you, he was right there beside you. I'm glad that we have a God that will never leave us or forsake us. A lot of times when we're going through storms, we can't see the big picture. All we can see is the now, not the later. But God has a plan for everything that he does for us. Well, whatever storm you're going through, it'll eventually come to an end. You just got to have faith in Jesus and believe that he'll make everything okay. My wife, she does photography, and she'll take a picture, and, you see it right then, and you don't really grasp what it's going to look like when it's all said and done. But when it's done, it looks totally different. Sort of like, if you're going through a storm, you may not be able to see what it's going to look like on down the road, but God does, and that's his plan. I'd like to share my own story that kind of goes along with this. A couple of years ago, my mom lost her life to cancer. And, back then I was really on fire for God. I was playing in the church band. I was going to church every time the doors was open. Just participating in a lot of extra things there at the church. And, I was really on fire for God. And I know that was a storm that I had to go through. And it got rough, my fire that I once had for God, it became more or less just like a flame. And, I became angry at the world, secluded, didn't want to be around people, didn't care if I went to church or not. I was just spiritually cold. I still believed in God and everything, but it just wasn't the same as it used to be. So, like Peter, I began to sink, and I had to cry out to God to help me, to lift me back up to where I needed to be. And after all this, I've got through this storm. I'm back in church every time the doors are open. Um, that I can possibly be there and I don't have to work. But God will get you through any kind of storm that you're going through. You just need to put your cares and problems in His hands, and He'll see you through them, just like He did Peter. And in closing, I would just like to say that, a lot of people think that Christians will not go through a lot of storms, but, just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you're not going to have problems like financially or, you know, family issues or issues with your friends or, just any kind of problem that someone who isn't a Christian could come up with. Christians still go through those too, but the only difference is that we have a Lord and Savior that we can turn to that'll help us get through these storms and not let us sink. And as long as you keep your eyes on the prize, which is Jesus, and trust in Him, you'll make it through the storm. And I would just like to say that I hope this message has helped you or blessed you in some way or another. Thanks.